Greetings, everybody. This is Jim, and we have a special guest here today. We have none other than Grant Dalgleish from Columbia Games with us today.
Hi, everyone.
All right, so basically, what we're going to be going over to you is the newest in the product line for Columbia Games. Actually, it's not new; it's redone, right?
It's a major expansion, so I call it new.
All right, it's as good as new because today we are going to be going over with you about why you should be using the Republic of Tharda for Harn for Columbia Games. Okay, so Grant, the first thing I want to ask you is what is it about this upgrade that is so significant? What's the most significant change?
It's expanded from the original by at least 200%. It's fully colorized, and we've added a whole lot of individualized detail about each settlement, as well as more about culture, politics, entertainment, food and drink, a number of sections that are seen in some of the other kingdoms, and this provides an equal footing for this area.
Okay, now you said it expanded it by 200%. So I know the article's 60 pages, right?
Yeah,
So it's 30 extra pages altogether that we worked on,
at least.
at
Yeah,
least.
it's hard to remember even that original these days. It's been a long time, but the original Tharda, published back in the 80s, has none of the details that are in here now. There's just so much more.
All right, so let's take a look at the political map. It's the first thing I want to look at. Now, this was done by your father, I'm assuming?
Yeah, the political map is a slice out of the Atlas map series. We have mapped the grid squares of the Harn map, where you see F6 and G6 up in the center upper part of that diagram there. Those are the grid squares that come from the large Harn map, which you're probably familiar with. That process of drilling down and expanding these maps into detailed, what we call Atlas maps, is a long process, and we've been working on that. And this political map is based on that same map. It's really nice how it's accurate. And every hex that you see on these maps is directly corresponding to the larger hexes that you see on the Harn map.
Okay, so as far as let's take a look at the other map now that I'm a fan of. Now, ooh, that's not the one. This is the one.
Now, this is what we call a poetic map.
Yeah, it's definitely beautiful.
It's more of the kind that you would hand players, or you would expect to be seen if you were using something from the region, from the period, so to speak, as opposed to the technically accurate political map.
Okay, now who drew this one? Because this wasn't your father.
No, that's Richard Luschek who
Of course it was.
put that together, and he also did all of the updated colorized art, some of which we'll show you now.
Yeah, we're going to show you a few of these now. Let's see here. There's a picture right there.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
tell us a little bit about the Society of Tharda, for those of you who don't know. But wait a minute, before you said that, you said that a lot of these people may know the Atlas maps and how it expands into our big map. Let me take a second. For those of you who don't know and want to grab this beautiful map, PDF map, it is available right now with a lot of other information for only $1 on Columbia Games. The link will be down below, but it also includes. I'll send the link of what all you get, so I don't have to double up here. But it's a deal. It's a screaming deal. But most of you already know this. So anyway, can you describe to me a little bit about the Society of Tharda and what this might, entail here? Is it just a giving society, or
Well, I wouldn't call it
you
that.
wouldn't call it a giving society? This picture would it kind of impart that there's a lot of merchants.
Merchant and commerce for sure are strong, important features. But in truth, that's something you'll see everywhere in the urban areas, and it's quite different, contrasted from rural areas. In Tharda, the urban and the rural areas are contrast in the same way that they kind of contrast in other parts of Harn. But what's unique about the Thardic republic is that it's a republic, whereas most of the regions of Harn are feudal monarchies, ruled by a king, sub-infeudated with earls and barons and knights. Um, it's it's a plutocracy in Tharda, which basically means money rules, and a few powerful families run the show.
Okay. Well, there's always a lot of intrigue, I'm sure, with something like that going on.
Well, sure.
Yeah. Now here we have a picture. This talks to me about Sharon actually.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go into that because this is a lot of the meat and bones. We've heard about Sharon. We've heard about the arenas. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Sharon is one of the 7 big cities of Harn. Also located in Tharda is Coronan. Those 2 of the 7 major cities of Harn are located in Tharda. Sharon is affectionately known as the city of sin, borrowing on the kind of things that you might expect to find there. In a sense, a simple way to put it is anything goes, or money talks, or something like that. The arenas are quasi-Roman gladiatorial arenas where it's blood sport, either people fighting people or fighting creatures. And you can see in this image we've got a gladiator and the crowd in the background, and a little blood on the floor. And it's a good illustration of some of the things you might see in the major cities
Okay.
on in Shiran and Coronet.
All right. So and there's just some more fighting there.
Sure. So this is showing us some of the Thardic Legion soldiers facing off against um, tribal people. There are several tribes that inhabit the wilderness areas, kind of on the borders and flanks of Tharda, and like in European history, they raided, and it was up to the professional legions to defend them. Tharda is unique in that regard, amongst Harnic realms, in that there is a professional standing army.
All right. So Grant, tell us a little bit about what's in Tharda.
In the book. So, after a brief introduction, we have a lengthy section about the history of the region. What's kind of unique about this region is that a long time ago in Harnic history, this area was run by an empire, and they call it the Korani Empire. It's quasi-Roman, and for those of us who know our history, and where in Earth history the Roman Republic devolved into an empire, this is almost the reverse. An empire that fell apart, and out of the ashes of that, with a few intervening stages, we ended up with this republic. So we have quite a bit of information about this, a little bit about the original history, older, and then some stuff that's quite recent. The republic itself is only about 50 years old, and since its foundation has been at war several times just to either secure its own borders or expansion. And we have a lot of nice details about that. And then we get to the current events, which set up all kinds of situations for role playing. They set up conflict, they set up a number of different things that you can get involved in.
Now I want to interject here a little bit because the year is what now?
720.
720, and it always has been 720 since the beginning of time, and that's been important because basically it leaves the game master to say, here's all the things that are happening, and it's up to you and the players to say what happens at the end.
Yeah.
A lot of other games have eras, and they make the story for you, and and it's like, well, what happened to what you guys did?
Yeah.
And then so that's important.
Now that's a philosophical stance. Since the beginning of the publishing of Harn, we have decided that it's up to you as the game master and the players to tell the story of what happens, and we don't want to contradict that. So we set it up and we stick to that time frame. And there's a lot of things that are kind of about, and that's true across the board on Harn. But here we give information about the current conflicts and who's interested in what loosely, so that you've got some plausible reasons for your storytelling. What else is kind of expanded out here in the newer version of Tharda is a lot more cultural information about clothing, fashion, art, entertainment, food and drink, music, theater, stuff that really adds to the richness of the storytelling. And then, as with the majority of the publications, we'll explain how this the government works, how the movers and shakers run the show. So it's a Senate in Tharda that has 68 seats at the moment, and it has changed over the years. To be a senator, it's a position driven by wealth or derived by wealth. We talk about the patron-client relationship, explaining how senators and other wealthy people maintain their relationships and keep people in their place. It's a different form of social hierarchy than feudal structure, which is quite rigid, but in a way quite similar. And we get down here into the different factions of the Senate. So broadly, we've called them the consolidationists, expansionists, monarchists, imperialists, reformists, and these groups each have different ambitions for both themselves and the future of the realm. And so we got all kinds of things that you can play with.
So that's about 4 political parties. That was basically the Republicans and Democrats, is those guys right there.
Yeah, in a sense, that's a lot of what we got. And another layer of breaking this down is, in a regional sense, there are provinces that divide Tharda up into provinces. And so Tharda, which by the way is a term loosely used for the region as well as sometimes for the republic, and provinces are generally ruled by a military presence. And so we get into that in detail here about who's controlling each province, with a portrait of the individual and some of the resources that'll be at his or her discretion.
And again, these are drawn by Richard Lushek.
Yep. We explain how the structure of the government works here with a little flow chart of how the Senate is kind of at the top of the chain here, and that there's a president and various other important titles within the Senate. And below that, as we mentioned, the provinces with a magistrate who's a political leader and a marshal, so a military leader. We explain here the treasurers, the astrologers, the governors, the various different people that move and shake. And you can see here we give a number in pence. The D stands for pence. That's how much these people will earn in a year, and that sets up all kinds of good stuff. You can be any one of these people in your game. You can work from the top and be involved in high-level senatorial discussions or politics, or you can be kind of down the chain or anywhere you want. That's the great thing about this stuff. Law is an important aspect of all society, actually, and so we've got a lot of detail in here explaining how that works, how it differs from feudal law and church law. And it's very fascinating, and that also opens up a lot of different role-playing opportunities. Litigant is an attorney, and that's a career, and you can find yourself needing a litigant to defend you for something you did, and this kind of stuff feels very modern, but actually fits really well into the period.
Would that go with the Hallmoots in Harn Manor?
Yeah, that's at a lower level, right? A Hallmoot is a village level meeting or a court, and there's the same kind of thing. There's a custom and law attached to all of it, but I wanted to explain how it is different in Tharda from other places, and so lots to read, lots to learn about. Next, we get into the economics, something that you will see again. These broad classes exist in all the publications, and it's the distinctions that are being spelled out here in this book. Explaining how the economy of the region is controlled heavily by the river, and the lake Banath, which is just shown in those maps in the just to the north and east of Tharda, is a huge inland sea. It's drained by the Thard River. There are several cities, castles, and keeps that border the region, and the rest just across the waves, north and east, really rugged country. a place like Sirion, where you can see there at the top of the map. There's silver mine there. There, Arakakalai is the home of the god Ilvers on the north side. It's wild country up there, mountainous. So you could base out of Tharda, traveling across the lake, trading with tribal people, trying to bring goods back to market. All that kind of stuff fits really well into this area, and we kind of explain that. One of the best things that we have um, for conveying detail and allowing for realistic stories is this little table of economic data. We do this in the other regions too. It's listing all the sites.
Yeah, I see it.
And then all the commodities, right? So a plus indicates that there is a surplus of that product in that area, and a negative indicates a demand. The dot indicates a balance. Now, from this information, game masters can freely develop realistic caravan routes and trade and motive for moving goods from one area to the other. And that kind of stuff is kind of never seen. Right? You never probably seen that in other products.
Not as much. They would say maybe like 2 or 3 things that a city is known for and stuff, but not as comparison in the table. You would actually have to, if they did have a list of what they sold and had, they wouldn't have a deficiency, that's for sure.
Yeah.
They would just say what they have. They
well,
wouldn't
supply requires demand to make it all work.
Somebody's got to have it, and it wouldn't be all in one section either. You'd have to do a lot of page flipping. That table definitely is going to help game masters out a lot.
Yeah. So we also have a section on religion.
Of course you do.
Unique a little bit to the Thardic area is it's a fairly tolerant place. Many of the other regions are a little more focused on one religion and less tolerant.
Is that because of mainly, you think, maybe the economics? Because I mean, money talks, right?
Yeah,
it's like, you got the money, I don't care.
That's right. That's exactly the correct way. The Church of Halea is one of the more influential churches in this realm, and not that church isn't particularly influential in other realms. So if you're into that, that's one of the best places that you could experience that. The Halean Church is quite unique in that it's loosely anything goes, hedonistic kind of a lifestyle where living is for living in the now, and where a lot of religion is for the afterlife.
Right.
Haleans really believe in the now.
Okay. Does it have anything to link to like Catholicism back in the medieval times with the occurrences? You know, you would do a sin or something like that and say, hey, pay us 50.
Yeah, I think that the Haleans are a little more transparent about that. It's sins are simply accepted as a fact of life. But the different religions do all show a little bit of presence here. It's very multicultural, polycultural, and you won't see that necessarily in other places except in some of the big cities. So for an experience with conflict, religious conflict, you might find Tharda is a really good spot to start gaming. Next, we have a large section about the military resources of the region, and in what is special again about Tharda is it's got a permanent standing army of legions, again kind of quasi-Roman, and we have an explanation of how these are recruited and funded and who's in control, and quite a nice detailed section about that, with further explanation about the major clans, acreage they hold, which is functionally a measure of power.
And just as a reminder, folks, if you've come this far in the video, there's a good chance you've liked the video. I hope so anyway. Please take a moment to smash that like and subscribe button and just let me know I'm doing a good job. I do appreciate it.
Having spoken about the major clans, we drill down into every settlement that you'll see in the region, and we provide economic details about every individual settlement. So within this district, for example, we're looking at the Shanad district, there are a number of villages which each have their own acreage and land quality and number of households. And up here, we're talking about the market size, so you can compare that to other places and to a bit of a determination of how much commerce is going on. And we do this with every region. Uh, this is one of the major parts of the expansion from the first edition 1980s version of Tharda. Didn't have this kind of detail about the individual commander who's running a region and some of his or her politics. And so the whole last half of this book, some 20 pages, is devoted to a breakdown of individual districts within the provinces, and this is really good stuff.
So how does a game master use something like that, like the acreage or the land quality? Is it just to make a story, as it goes and stuff, or just it just something that comes to mind? How would that affect four groups of adventurers or something like that? Yeah, how would you get them involved with
there's every way in the world that you could handle that. The information is there to paint a picture. Right? Game masters are storytellers, and the more information they have at their fingertips, the more of a plausible story they're able to tell. So the land quality, for example, we use a system based on an index of 1.0. That's average land. And when it's 1.05, that's superior land, more fertile. And below 1, like 0.098, is somewhat infertile land. So that's a measure of wealth, and it can be used as a multiplier in at the detailed level of an individual village. Those things can be used to determine how much revenue, how much crops come out of an area. And again, that's all setting up realism in the storytelling. If your players are living in one of these villages, then it really matters to them. If instead they're on a caravan route passing through one, it might be just kind of surface information, but it's there when you need it, and that's the design philosophy behind all this stuff. Way more than you'll ever need, but it's there if you need it.
Well, it's get into the game master's head, because game masters are known for having tomes and tomes of information, and they rarely use just one.
Yeah.
They pick one from column A, 5 from column B, and go to town. So
Absolutely.
this is exactly what that's for.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's really good stuff, and the latest expansion, again, still true to the original, which is that's not so easy. We worked hard to make that happen.
Okay, so here we have some heraldry of the Thardic Republic. What can you tell me about these things, Grant?
So heraldry is a major feature of all of Arnic lore. It's used to identify families, which is important in times of war or peace. And so the major clans, families which run the movers and shakers in the region have this symbolic regalia to define themselves. And there is a detailed, on the back side of this page in the book, there's a detailed explanation of what you're seeing there, right down to the specifics about the meaning of the animals or the creatures or the shape or the colors. And we also define the same type of thing for the heraldry of the legions. Those are the permanent military units that are seen and found in Tharda. They also have a detailed heraldry, which is part of their history, part of their culture.
Matter of fact, there is a separate article at Columbia Games about heraldry in general.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put a link down below, because you might want that along with this. But before you go grabbing that heraldry along with Tharda, we probably should talk to people about Harn Quest. I think that's a smart move. No, not going to hang anybody here. Okay, now we were talking about the heraldry. Now the thing is, Columbia Games has a separate article altogether about heraldry. It's its own little file, full with information about how heraldry affects Harn. Now the thing is, before you go to the link down below, which I will have, about heraldry, and grab that, I highly suggest you just grab Tharda first and be a part of Harn Quest, okay? Now this Tharda was a double issue. Now, the reason I'm saying that to get Harn Quest first will be apparent in a second, but this was a double issue of Harn Quest, not necessarily double price. Okay, it's that it's going to be 36.99, and it's basically what you'll get is all of Tharda, and you're going to get for the next few months until the next Harn Quest comes out. 50% off of all other PDFs that you buy on Columbia Games. Spread out. That's any article. You want to get a Kingdom of Caldor, half off. You want to get the Potions article, half off. You want to get the Heraldry one, half off. This is a perfect time to do it too. Just because especially if you're new to HarnQuest, or even if you're actually been around for a while, there are those articles you haven't gotten yet, and you just hadn't had an excuse to pull the trigger. This is the one reason to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Right on.
So, Grant, what are one of the reasons that why a game master would want to use Tharda, and what kind of adventures can people find?
Tharda is an excellent base for adventuring out of. There are a lot of different styles of role playing that can be experienced in just this one region, from treasure hunting, exploring, political intrigue, military. Tharda is often at odds with its neighbors, Kande and Retham, and also the tribal peoples that we saw in one of those images earlier. So, from exploring to military to political, commercial, also merchants and trade, a big part of Arctic culture. So lots of different opportunities, and what's different from everywhere else is being a plutocratic state, not feudal. There is more social mobility. There's more opportunity to find yourself moving up the ranks, either in the military or by gathering fortune and then using that fortune to buy influence. Kind of stuff that is a little harder to pull off in a feudal realm where birth is everything. You know, where you're born is your station, and it doesn't move very much in your life usually. I would say there's more room for that in this environment, and there are more. That's just kind of the tip of the iceberg for some of the different ideas.
How about wizards? How are they? Because I know Meldrin is the Wizard's Isle. How would wizards fit into something like this necessarily?
Well, like the rest of Harn, magic is employed subtly by wizards, for the reason that when they attract attention to themselves, a wizard is pretty quickly dubbed a witch and perhaps burnt at the stake or other such things. That's what you'd see everywhere, including the Wizard's Isle. Actually, it's not still not a public thing that magic anywhere on Harn, whether here or there. It's probably a little rarer in this region than others, but the whole idea is subtlety, as I mentioned, and so a wizard under cloak and dagger can be anywhere, really. It's up to you, up to the players, up to the game master, and your version of the story.
Now, as far as when you were talking about money matters so much, obviously, people that want that are going to be traveling to get the Tharda. I mean, if you want to make your own way. But how much influence does Tharda have over the rest of Harn because of that monetary, uh, backing?
Well, Tharda is sandwiched between Retham and Kande in the southwest part and corner of the island. It's strategic in location in that it commands the upper reaches of the Thard River, which is a huge river and central trade route, flowing down through Retham ultimately to the city of Galotha. Uh, and you find that the reach of Thardic merchants and it definitely spills beyond their borders into some of the neighboring regions, and they have quite a bit of influence.
All right. So another question I want to ask then is, Also, what's next for HarnQuest? I mean, this was Tharda. I know we don't have any pictures of what's new because Richard Luschek would have to draw it yet, and I don't have a time travel machine to grab them. Would love to do that, but what's next? What's on the slate?
While in 2022, which is just around the corner, we have a fairly bold set of plans for HarnQuest, and we'll we'll show you a projected list in the comments below, and welcome your feedback. Take a look.
Now, as far as writers are concerned, this one was written by. Let me see here. This one was written by Margaret Foy, Edwin King, and Mark Renouf.
Yeah.
Now, how much have we done with those three writers before?
Well, Ed King was a line editor for Columbia Games and responsible in whole or in part for most of the publications that happened in the 80s. Margaret, as far as I know, is no longer involved with our writing, and so her credit in this case is dating back to the original edition.
Okay.
Mark is still with us, an active writer, and so too are Joe, Brent, and Carrie, who we have listed as contributors. Harn is really a team effort. Right? There's all of us working together, artists, contributors, editors, writers, all working together to make a cohesive product.
Yeah, talk to me about Brent Bailey because he's like the team captain when it comes to the writers. I mean, what's his job entail basically? I mean, I know we're getting off of Tharda, but it's interesting to talk about.
Brent's the quarterback.
Okay.
Brent's putting things together, making plays would be a pretty good analogy. By working with the writers, artists, editors, and developing both the current stuff and a long range plan for what we're doing. Brent's skill set is unmatched at layout and graphics and making these products look first rate, and we really appreciate having him.
So what's the process for making a HarnQuest? I mean, first you got to. I would imagine it starts with deciding on the articles. Who decides that generally? Is it top dog? Is it Tom? Is it you? Is it Brent? Is it everybody?
It's a little bit of a committee, but the one of the interesting things about this entire concept is that it's a labor of love for all of us, the writers, and especially. So part of how we think is to allow writers to develop any areas that they find interesting, and then we take that content and then work together with the next level editors and artists to fit it into a calendar and a schedule for publication. And in that way, we get enthusiasm and people becoming experts, certain writers becoming experts on certain regions or certain concepts, and it's far less of a duty to fill pages, much more of a labor of creative love.
So as far as that goes, how about continuity? That's got to be with so many articles in print. How much? Who's in charge of that? Is that? I would imagine everybody kind of raises their hand, says, "So you can't do that because of X, Y, and Z."
Yeah, there's a process that we call Canon Checking, which is a reference to religious law from Earth's history, and whereby canon is gospel. So anything that has been written before and published in an earlier edition or in another product that mentions, say, Tharda, cannot be violated, cannot be changed. And so there's a canon editing team. People fact check and make sure. It's easier than it used to be these days. We have computers and searchable databases, so we can look for terms and see if they were mentioned in other places.
And PDFs.
And but nonetheless, it's one of our most important considerations: continuity, accuracy, internal consistency. That makes it so that this whole thing is timeless. You could be playing Harn today. You might have started back in 1983. And nothing that we publish would ever contradict anything else. At least that's the plan.
Okay. And what is the next step for the hardbacks? I mean, we got Caldor, we got Mildred. What's next?
We're looking at doing the Kingdom of Retham next, and that expansion of Retham will include um, the castle of Shostim and the city of Galatha. At least that's the current plan, and it should be coming out early in 2022. In that 2022, we might be working through, in addition to HarnQuest and new materials, quite a few of the new hardback series, which we're really pleased with. It turned out great. We're really happy with it, and we hope you will be too.
Thanks everybody for spending some time with us, and we'll see you next video.